Hey everybody, Signet here with the Bullish Bears, and I want to talk a little bit about a watch list column that you can add onto your Thinkorswim. It's a default watch list column. They don't call them watch list indicators, although a lot of times they are an indicator. They're actually called columns. So when we're talking about something we're going to add to a watch list, we want to add a watch list column. There is a column called the high-low graph. There is a publication that you can go to read all about this high-low graph. The publication is called the Ticker Tape, and it is owned and written by TD Ameritrade. Okay, so if you go there, if you go to Google and you type in the Ticker Tape, you can go to this publication, and then you need to search for the high-low graph. I'm going to share a link in this video to this article, but you can go there on your own without using the link that I'm going to add. Now, a real great shortcut about their articles is these little sections where it says key takeaways, and then they just give like the highlights of what the article is talking about. And in the takeaways, they say watch lists are helpful, but they don't always provide a sense of market sentiment. And the high-low graph uses a formula to help track that sentiment for individual securities. And it can be helpful for investors who need to quickly check sentiment for securities on their watch list. And that makes sense, right? Now, I've been using this for quite a while. You can make adjustments to it. We're going to get to that. But first, just kind of work your way through the article. They talk about what it is, and then they mention that it goes from minus 100 all the way up to positive 100. Now, when we get into actual code, it is really 1.00 and minus 1.00. So it's not a range of 200 from a minus 100 to a positive 100. It's really a range of 2 from a minus 1 to a positive 1. They talk about two different imaginary companies moving around through the day and how buyers and sellers are pushing that price around. All right, and then they have pictures of it. They talk about adding it to the watch list. And then they talk about how you can adjust the time frame. And there's the indicator. Okay, so I really encourage you to read this article. Now let's come over to Thinkorswim. So here's just a typical watch list. It's the Dow Jones. If you go to your watch list, scroll down to public, they are alphabetized. We want the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And now we want to add the high-low. So there's a very small little gear right there. And when we click on it, it asks if we want to customize it. We click yes. We type in the word high, and you can see it has the high-low graph. So double click on that. It's now added to the Thinkorswim. Now I have to kind of use the slider here, but if you slide that a little bit, you can see that it has a place for you to adjust the time frame. You do not need to adjust this thing, even if you're intraday trading, especially if you're intraday trading. You don't have to do anything. It works right out of the box, no adjustments needed. So we go ahead and hit apply, and now you can see that it has this graph. If we click on the name high-low graph, it will sort it from high to low or low to high. And remember, it's going from minus 100 all the way up to 100. This thing is very useful, okay? Now, right out of the bat, we can use it this way. But I got to thinking, I would really like to see more than just the Dow Jones. Maybe I want to look at the S&P 100. Now, the problem with Thinkorswim and its watch lists is if you have too many things in your watch list, you start to get a watch list error. Okay. And at some point, it'll say you're trying to look at too many things and it just won't give you anything. Since I'm an options trader, I really like to focus on names of companies that have weekly options. Apple is one of those names. If I click on the trade tab, you can see it has weekly options. I don't really like to trade things, especially in a day trade with options, if it doesn't have weekly options. The problem is there are 600 products that have weekly options. And I'm pretty sure if I go in here and I use Thinkorswim's watch list and say, show me things with weekly options, we're going to start getting that error, right? So now I've got all this error and it's not doing me any good because there's too many names in that list. And yet those are the names that I really want to see. So I thought, well, how are we going to fix this? So the first thing I thought of was, well, what's the code? So I opened up the code and I really didn't see anything in here too complex. So I copied all of this code and I exited out of the watch list and I created an indicator. Now we wouldn't want to put this indicator on our chart because it's not going to do us any good. It's only going to see one product, the chart we're looking at. That's not helpful. But the way Thinkorswim works, if you have an indicator, you can use the scanner. So we want to create a new scan. I'll just hit the reset on mine. And we already know we want to look at names that have weekly options. So we click scan in the watch list that has weekly options. And for me, in day trading, a lot of ETFs just don't move far enough to make it a tradable opportunity for me. Out of 600 companies and all the things that we could trade, I'm really not interested in ETFs outside of the most basic ones like SPY, QQQ, right? The indexes. So I'd rather just exclude those, right? And of course, there is all ETFs. So now we're scanning in the watch list that is weeklies, and we are excluding all of the ETFs. Now, another thing that I like to do whenever I use the scanner is I like to tell it how to sort these things out. So we want to sort by market cap in descending order. And then we need to point this thing in the right direction. And I also want to make sure that it's not trying to sort by, if I accidentally hit net change or volume, it would sort things by volume or by net change. So to make sure it's not accidentally doing that, I click the little gear here and I tell it no sorting. That means it's only going to sort using this information here and not by anything that I accidentally clicked down here. Now we want to add a filter. We're going to add a study. We click on the drop-down menu, choose custom. We want to go to the edit box. And here we tell it what indicator we want. So we choose study. We choose the study that I made called the high-low graph. And what we're asking here is what number do we want? Well, it goes from -1, which is the most aggressive downward trades, and a +1, which is the most aggressive positive upward trades. So we want to look at a value, and we want to ask, is the high-low graph greater than or equal to a number? I've been using 90. So if a company has a high-low value greater than 0.9 within the last one bar, it will show up in the scan. So I hit save. Now we want to pause right here and make sure we're reading this correctly. On a daily aggregate, remember it was always daily in our watch list. If the high-low graph is greater than or equal to 0.9, then we want it to show up. So we hit OK, hit scan. Now I'm recording after hours, so it's very likely that nothing is going to show up, but this is how we would set up the scanner. And you know what? Look at that. It already did bring up names. Okay. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing that indicator. And when you import that indicator, it may ask you how you want to name it. When you go to add your indicator here, after you've imported the high-low indicator, you have to tell this thing to find the indicator that you installed. So if you name yours the way that I named mine, you will be looking for high underscore low underscore graph, high-low graph. The underscore is there because when you're naming indicators, there cannot be spaces between the names. Well, I want to see a space. It makes it easier to read. So I had to add that underscore line to put spaces between the words. Now you can name your indicator whatever you want, but when you go into customize and you go to custom and then you go to edit and you choose your study, you will have to find the study that you imported by its name. Once you have this thing made, you can now save this scan and use this on your watch list column. Okay, so now you go up to the top, save scan, name the scan whatever you want. Now on my watch list column, instead of looking at the Dow Jones, I can go in and find the scan that I just made. Now, the information in here will be the most aggressively traded stocks that have weekly options. And this is only a positive one. If you wanted to do a negative one, then instead of doing 0.9, you would do a minus 0.9. And you could load more than one watch list. That way you have one watch list looking at positive markets and one watch list looking at negative markets. One thing that I have been thinking about is by the time it gets to 0.9, it's already started to make some pretty aggressive moves. So you may want to actually look for things that are not yet at 9. It's just a hint, just a little something that I'm throwing out there saying, you know, it might be worth your while to play around with this a little bit and perhaps filter out things based on the price, right? Maybe you don't want to trade things that are too expensive or too cheap. Maybe you want to focus on only names that are breaking out onto all-time highs on the daily chart, or names that are above the VWAP on an intraday chart, all kinds of ways that you could help narrow the list so that it's not such a long list. I like to leave the list just the way it is. And what you'll notice throughout the trading day, names that are doing really good today will stay on this list all day, right? It'll be the same name all day long that you just see showing up again and again all day. And there are times where you will come to this and it'll tell you that something is doing really good, and you'll go look at it and you really don't see anything there at the time. And then when you go and look back later on, it really stands out like, oh, wow, that thing really did get up and move. But at the time, there just wasn't anything there. And, sometimes it's going to end up on the list when it's getting a move like that. See that very big green candle? That would very likely put it on the list. So, nothing's perfect out there. But when it comes to scanning and intraday filters, Thinkorswim is really handicapped compared to a lot of the other products that you could buy and use, right? Because you kind of get what you pay for. And Thinkorswim, it is free. But this thing is amazing when you apply this on the intraday, especially after the morning rush, right? Because you know what I mean? Like first thing in the morning, the bell rings, it's 9:30, everything is blowing up. This list is huge because there's so much stuff moving. I don't really use it first thing in the morning. I don't need to. I've already got a game plan first thing in the morning. But later on in the day, say past 10:30 and into 11 o'clock, when things are really starting to slow down, and especially in the afternoon, 1 o'clock, 1:30, we all start feeling like, wow, I guess the market's done for the day. We really just can't find anything to trade. And yet, catching a move like that, that's what this thing does. This helps you find a move like this before it gets way up here, right? So I really like it in the afternoon. And like I said, you can go in and you can adjust it and play with the settings. I've seen people, using 3 or 4 of these and having one on the daily and one set to like 1 hour and one set to 30 minutes and one set to 5 minutes. I think it's overkill. I think at some point you're just getting more markets than you can trade. Even using it on the daily, I'm already getting more markets than I can trade. And I'm talking about catching some really great afternoon runs. Quick and easy, in and out, $100 to $125 in about a minute and a half, just done and move on to the next one. The other day, I had 27 trades done in an hour and a half. It was that fast, just back to back, in the market, in the market, in the market, in the market, in the market. So that is the high-low graph. I already showed you how we take the indicator and we put it into the scanner. If for some reason you're having issues with this high-low graph, take a real good look at how I named it, right? Because we can't add spaces. I'm hitting the space bar right now on the name. I can't add a space. We have to use the underscore, okay? If you name it exactly like mine, capital H, capital L, capital G, and then that lower line in there, the underscore, you'll be good to go, okay? Now, once you have this indicator, you don't have to add, I've added that label. You don't need that label. It doesn't help the scanner at all. So if you don't want to import my indicator, you can get your own. just click the little gear there, hit customize, open up the scroll, and just copy all of this information. Use Control C for copy, exit out of all of that stuff, open the beaker, hit create, delete whatever is in there, and hit Control V. Now you have that high-low indicator, and you can name it whatever you want. So if I name this video junk, we'll just say video. I'm going to name the indicator video. Hit OK, hit apply, hit OK. Come over to the scanner, add filter, study, click on the drop down, go to custom, edit, open up this drop down, tell it we want study, search for the indicator we just made called video, and we want to find companies with a high-low value greater than 90. That's 0.90. And when it comes to the scanner, I have mine on daily right here. It says D, daily. But you could run more than one scanner, right? You could save one at a 90. You could save one at an 80. You could save one maybe negative 90, so you can get trades to the downside. You can certainly do it this way instead of adding all of those watch list columns. That's what I've got for you guys. That is how you build your scanner. Make sure you save it when you're done. Then you have your watch list made and you're good to go. Like I said, I scan in weeklies and I exclude ETFs. I appreciate your time watching this video. I look forward to seeing you at the next one.